morning, ladies and gentlemen. If you wish to take your seat, we have this morning again a very interesting agenda. The topic of this first session is renewable energies in this first panel. As you know, the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, said in his introductory speech and program when the Commission was formed that Europe has to become world leader in renewable energy. So to meet this objective, we must really lead on innovation for a next generation of renewable energies, renewable technologies, to make them cost effective, to make them perform at much higher level. But it's not enough that we do important work, important innovation on the generation side. We must integrate renewables in the system in a sustainable and manageable way. So research and innovation under the set plan, the Strategic Energy Technology Plan, aims exactly that. And this was the aim when we published the communication at the end of 2015 on the integrated set plan, which was setting out 10 action lines to achieve this target, to achieve a sustainable, secure, and competitive energy system. So here we are today to also to report what has happened last year. A very important work has been done, a very collective work has been done, together with national governments, together with industry, together with research performers. And the outcome is, on the renewable side, that in 5 renewable technologies, we together managed to set very concrete and ambitious performance targets, cost of technology and cost of energy targets. And all this has been then committed via declarations of intent in these areas. As for the generation of renewable energy, the areas where we could proceed big time is certainly offshore wind, a new generation of photovoltaics, ocean energy, concentrated solar power, and deep geothermal energy. So these 5 could make a very important advance. Now, the panel today here will elaborate not only on these new ways and innovation on energy generation, but also, and very much so, on the integration to the system, because that adds a lot to the final cost efficiency and the performance of the energy system as a whole. We have a very distinguished panel. Colleagues will speak about 12-13 minutes in their introductory statements, using also slides. But we would like to leave ample time for questions and answers, and I expect you will be as active and interested as we could already experience yesterday. So to start with, I would like to invite Mr. Diego Pavía, the CEO of the Knowledge and Innovation Community under the European Institute of Technology, KIC InnoEnergy, and he will cover quite a number of technology areas and will put, I think, the emphasis on EU competitiveness. So Diego, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, András. Good morning, everybody. I will divide my 10 minutes in 3 points. First, to see where we put our objectives last year as set plan community, and what has been achieved by the industry as a whole over the last 12 months. then where we deem from ENTSO-E where the problem lies, the concern lies in the continuous progress of improving. And then finally, what we believe is the key booster, let's say technology, value chain, value function in the value chain for making renewables a full success all across the board. So starting with 3 technologies, not more, out of the 5 that Andreas mentioned, I started with offshore wind. Those were the targets that last year, only 12 months ago, we told ourselves that would be a good target to deliver by 2020 and 2030. If I take offshore wind, 10 cents of a euro per kilowatt hour. Only 12 months ago. That's what we all undersigned last year. Well, what has happened? Already, you see the numbers, 7 cents of a euro in June. Then that was already a good, incredible improvement. But then we go more and we see 6 cents of a euro just in September. And then we go a bit more and we see 5 cents of a euro. And it's not Mickey Mouse companies, it's real production delivering into the net onshore in the injection point. So in 1 year, we are really ahead of everything that we put ourselves last year. In 1 year, beyond the 10 cents of a euro that we put ourselves as a target. And that's mainly European technology, European business models, European manufacturers, European industry. So that's very good news. What we are doing from the ENTSO-E is just one thing, just to share that is not what we have done, but what everybody in the industry is doing going forward. This is a tool that links innovation to ENTSO-E that has been produced by the European innovation ecosystem. Well, this tool, we are cutting a very juicy contract with NREL, the National Lab of Renewables in the States, because they want to piggyback on European knowledge. So the good news is that in offshore wind, Europe is leading. Let's keep on leading. First technology. Second one, solar. Let's look at solar. And again, I will not put the targets because the targets that we set ourselves were pretty much on improvement rather than ENTSO-E. And you see also that in the world, in the last year, the last commissioned big plants are just at incredible, unbelievable prices. That one in Mexico, that one in Peru at 5 cents of a euro, the next one in Dubai at 3 cents of a euro, and everybody thought last year, oh, that's really the limit. Then we continue, 2.9 in Chile. Okay, Diego, nice, but it's not Europe. This is somewhere else where the sun and the quality and the number of hours is much better. But let's look at Europe. The map of Germany. Total number of production points in 2000, 200. The normal centralized power generation. 2015, 1.6 million generation points. And the yellow color is PV. So even if we have lost the PV industry in Europe over the years, in terms of the retail side, the consumption side, we are benefiting from those low prices. And the good thing is that the opportunity now is on the added value PV, BIPV, heterojunction, double facing, and there again, we see signs that Europe is regaining leadership. The mass volume was lost and will never be recovered, but on the added value PV, we see a lot of signs that it's becoming much better. So we have yet again an opportunity to regain on this function of the value chain. But that's impressive, 1.6 million of generation points. And then the next speaker, Konstantin, will say, how can I manage all this, all those injection points with a reasonable service and quality in the system? Well, that's not our problem, that's his problem. Let's look at the system afterwards. And then the third one, ocean energy. Also, we put ourselves what seemed very demanding targets. 20 cents of a euro in 2025 in wave energy. Well, I can share with you that in ENTSO-E we are today in 2 technologies. One is wave and one is current under the water surface. That the wet test at 1-to-1 dimension were already at 16 cents of a euro. Before industrialization, before upscaling, before volumes. And yet again, it's European technology. So my main point of this first set of slides is Europe in renewables. We are leading in two of the three I mentioned, and we can recover the added value PV once the mass PV was lost. So let's keep on working. So the set planned targets, Andreas, we need to be more aggressive. It's good news for everybody, basically. Then what the ones that have been tracking with ENTSO-E, you know that I always put a slide into the slideshow, because we believe that it's not about technology that the whole thing is about. So I'm recurrently asking Andreas to drop the T from the set plan, because it's not anymore about technology that the whole game is about. It's about the systemic view. It's about technology, it's about business models, it's about human capital, it's about regulation, it's about the whole thing. And in order to make the set plan much more into the game, I would love, as I asked in Rome and as I asked in Luxembourg, and I ask again today, to drop the T from the set plan, because then we'll be in the move with everybody. Anyway, the 6 dimensions that you know I'm always pitching, and I will cover 2 of them. On the technology, storage, that for us is the boosters that are really integrate, help the grid owners, but integrate renewables much more. And what worries us most, that is the lack of investment muscle. And I always do a small pitch about human capital. Let's not forget that the people that should be in this room in 20 years are today in the universities, in the schools. So let's not forget that we need a different human capital to make the journey of the energy transition. Okay, so back to what worries us. It's only one slide. This is what worries us most. Out of the 6 dimensions, we're not concerned about technology, about business modeling, about regulation, about human capital, about societal preparation. Everybody's working and we're progressing. It's about where is the money. The winter package says that, hey, we need 177 billion euros per year to make the whole thing happen. And when you look at the big investors in the past, the utilities, their balance sheet has crashed. Their P&L is not delivering profits anymore. Their trade rating has deteriorated 5 notches. So who is going to pull the innovation from the financial side? Where is the money going to come from? 177 billion, as the winter package says, it's a lot of money. And we do not see from ENTSO-E the big financial muscles that are going to jump into our sector to drive the transition and to drive innovation and to drive technology. That's our main concern. And my final part of the presentation is what we believe is the booster of renewables, besides Konstantin's good work and the DSO's good work, but that's storage. And the storage, the only point we want to make today is, I will talk about technology a bit later, but please, let's have a non-fragmented market. So whatever technology could be brought into the system faces equal rules of the game. And I'm putting on the grid and behind the meter the colors of the different regulations for the different countries in Europe. And you see that again is arc-en-ciel, is a rainbow. Please, whatever regulation, but let's have one color in all the countries, because then the market uptake of a technology or a business model will be much easier. And innovation could really face big volumes. That's only in the grid. If we look behind the meter, it's pretty much the same. It's a patchwork of different colors. Let's progress towards one color, whatever the color it is, but let's have, for the supply side, a 400 million market and not a fragmented one. And that's just about a decision. It's not about technology. It's about one of 6 dimensions that we just mentioned. So all in all, conclusion, the tools to continue, I say continue, we don't have always to look across the ocean to say, hey, the others are better. We are extremely good in Europe in renewables, in what is the full value chain, to continue leading the renewables worldwide. Again, it's not about technology, it's about the 6 dimensions and the system view. And the good thing is that in Europe, we're extremely good at complex systems, at system thinking. Maybe we are not extremely good at one technology of having extremely good lean manufacturing, but we're extremely good at system thinking. So it's the opportunity in energy. There is value, but this value has to be very evident for the money to come. We have to show business models where the investors will put their money because they will return their money. That's our main concern. And please, let's encourage homogeneity of market rules, because then there is one market for whatever technology, innovation, or business model is coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego, for this excellent introduction. It's also a really good introduction for the day, for the session. Quite some messages to us as well, quite some messages to the SETPlan community, that indeed behind those technologies a whole ecosystem has to be built. And I just recall what has been discussed yesterday in ample way, the accelerating clean energy innovation communication, which indeed takes up these issues in that systemic way and setting out the ecosystem needed for the technological revolution you described. One more word. Yes, the targets should be ever more ambitious. We are maybe surprising, maybe not surprising, because it's a revolution after all. We reach those targets usually faster than we envisage. So SETPlan, and I can really promise this, will undergo regular revisions in this sense as well. Now, you yourself introduced the next presentation excellently and made all of us curious on the presentation of Mr. Konstantin Staschus, the Secretary General of ENTSO-E. So let's see how indeed the energy system can take up the challenge.
Yeah, thank you, András. Thank you also, Diego, for this introduction. One of the sentences you said towards the end struck me, and I want to repeat it. Europe is very good at systems thinking. In this day and age, with Brexit and other things, we tend to get depressed sometimes. Let's not forget our strength. System thinking, indeed, is a great strength of this continent, I believe. And the transition we're trying to push forward in the SETPlan with research and development, with 3.5 energy packages, with a package that was announced on the 30th, all of that is trying to address 3 different complementary paradigm shifts that are going on at the same time, and if anything requires systems thinking, and it is to come out not only alive but ahead when these 3 big transitions will be all said and done in a few decades, namely the transition of an old monopoly electricity supply to better and better markets with the customer at the center, the climate protection driven switch to renewable energy, and doing all that in a smart way with all the Internet of Things and so on. I'll try to explain to you how, from the viewpoint of system operations, continental scale, ENTSO-E, but also from the viewpoint of one of these new European technology and innovation platforms that the Commission founded over the last year, we're looking at this from a system integration viewpoint. I don't think I need to introduce ENTSO-E much anymore. It's the association of 42 transmission system operators that cover, if you count Turkey, our observer member, 600 million people, almost twice as much as the United States. I also don't need to explain that the power system is changing and that, of course, the TSOs, but all the operators in the system need to adjust to, and many of the words that you can read on the slide we have been talking about in conference after conference for years. Diego explained much better than this slide might how the costs of renewables have been going down, and the costs of at least some of the conventional energy forms seem to have gone up or remained more or less stable. So the direction we need to travel in is clear. The policymakers in Europe squabble about many things, how to distribute migrants and so on, but they don't seem to squabble so much about climate protection, and more renewable energy. It's the question how much, and if they squabble about it at all, then they squabble about the integration question. If there's already a lot of photovoltaics in a certain region, and every time the sun shines and you build another 100 megawatts of it, the only thing that happens is that the power exchange price goes deeper into negative territory. Is that really the region you want to push more photovoltaics into? Where is the limit to that? Those are legitimate questions, those are system questions, and we must get better quickly to address them. That's a slide from a couple of years ago, just to illustrate how this is not just a region by region, not just a Spain and southern France or Italy phenomenon. This is a Europe-wide phenomenon. If you look at the gigawatts installed for the whole system, you can see how via 2020 towards 2030, there will be a lot more variable renewables. You can see that on this graph I distributed the renewables in general over the controllable ones in red, hydro, biomass, and so on, and the ones you cannot control very well because they depend on the weather, wind, solar in particular. And those two together will increase enormously. Why? Because Diego has shown they're relatively the cheapest, and of course we want to keep the energy transition affordable for our industries, commerces, and people. And then you have a situation where if the peak load is only this relatively small fraction orange line on the slide of the overall picture, because wind and solar come at low capacity factors, so if you want to get a lot of terawatt hours from them, you need to build capacity. And that's what's already there. Portugal, Spain, Germany, Italy, and so on. And that's what will be there Europe-wide in 2030. And then you can have situations where your entire peak load is more than covered by fluctuating renewables alone. And that means you'll have a system integration problem. I'll get into that a bit more. But we also have other new factors that introduce challenges but also opportunities. We'll have the smartening. Smart meters don't make a smart grid, but they're an important part of it, and we'll have a lot more of them very, very soon. Through that, we'll have a lot more demand response. You can have demand response without smart meters too, but it becomes hard to give the customer fair value for his demand response. If the power price, because of a scarcity, hopefully not this winter in France, that's very, very high, into the thousands or tens of thousands euros per megawatt hours. And the customer really reduces his load painfully. Electricity is worth a lot, so if he reduces it, that's pain. That's what you normally don't want. And you don't measure it. You don't measure his contribution, his much smaller contribution to the peak load than his neighbors, who just keeps heating his apartment to 25 degrees. And they both pay the same at the end of the month or at the end of the year. Yes, you can have demand response without smart meters, but it's going to be tough to get people to feel fairly treated. This is another graph of how already today, September 2016 in Denmark, you can have more fluctuating renewables, in Denmark primarily wind, of course, than demand on the weekends. The strong grid depicted on the left, which is getting stronger by the year, is one of the things that helps us do that, because if you just have too much in one country, what are you going to do? Curtail it, which is a stupid waste of the investment, store it, which will be getting cheaper, but is still pretty expensive, or if you can, transport it somewhere else where the value is higher. It's not the only solution, but it's one of the best ones. And in order to do that, coming now to the system advantages of Europe, we have the cleanest multi-country electricity market framework in the world, by far. We've worked on it for decades. We've gotten the network codes that do many of the details. And even though many of the lines are delayed, many of them are also going forward. And the grid is indeed getting stronger. So the conditions are pretty good. This slide gives an updated picture with the most recent data. about this curtailed store or transport question. I've again taken the wind and solar and separated them, and you can see that for the 2020 to 2025 period, this green part on top is growing quite a bit, towards 450 gigawatts, far exceeding the base load. So this combination of curtailment, storage, transport, but above all, intelligent management is super important. This intelligent management, system advantage Europe, gotta happen on both the continental scale, where our transport system is good, where our high density in Europe makes it much easier for us than for China or the United States to integrate the whole continent and all its diversity. But of course, it's also gotta happen at the smart city level. And there's a lot of work to do at the local level that must have a lot of focus in the research, but it must always be anchored on the wonderful European wholesale market that we have made so much progress on. Together, those two markets give the right signal. Together, the congestion at the transmission level, the possible future congestion at the distribution level, the wholesale market price, even the taxes and so on. Together, these price signals must be made dynamic to give the right signals to come to the right result. Now, in terms of research and development, we have introduced this technology and innovation platform, which I'm very privileged and proud to chair, called Smart Networks for Energy Transition. It's having its 4th meeting already next week, Friday, in Brussels. We'll be hopefully approving a roadmap for the next 10 years of research prioritization, and will then be, after that, starting to develop the first research implementation plan for 2018 to 2020. And our thoughts there in this very broad ETIP are structured around the different levels that I'll show you briefly on the next few slides. Obviously, on transmission, you will need flexibility, much more than in the past. You will need markets to be integrated better at continental, but also local scale. And you will want to do all of that while maintaining reliability, because when the sun shines, wind blows, and you need to export surpluses from one region to get the best value for it, well, that's one question. But if sun doesn't shine and wind doesn't blow and the investment incentives weren't there for other kinds of plants, where are you going to get your electricity from then? So the reliability is a key feature here, and in our opinion in ENTSO-E, we analyze that in our adequacy forecast, the methodology, to get a good view of how much reliability need there is and how much flexibility need there is. Those are pretty similar, and we're making good progress in quantifying that better and better. So we're looking at the transmission level, at the system level, at storage, demand response, new tools for security analysis, modular planning methodology, data hubs, the storage integration. Let me emphasize 2 words here on this slide. One is the other energy networks at the bottom left, and the other one is the data hubs. I was speaking about the 3 paradigm shifts, including the Internet of Things, the data. We gotta treat these data right, and that's gotta have an intensive local disaggregated level. Whether blockchain will really help us there or not, I don't know yet, but lots of things will happen that are pretty likely, with apps provided by who knows whom, to bypass all the wonderful IT systems we have and directly go to the customer. But as my example from before showed, if the customer in the end isn't exposed to and doesn't see on his bill the effect of the wholesale market price and how he helped or didn't help address a scarcity in the overall market, it's not going to work either. So when we design these data hubs to do accounting for what each customer did and each quarter hour, and potentially different in a congested part of the local grid versus a non-congested part of the local grid, then we're not doing the right thing. So this gotta enable the right accounting, countrywide certainly, and Europe-wide for the integrated market, but it's also got to enable all this technology progress, which still seems to be rolling over all of us, from the apps coming out of Silicon Valley, China, and elsewhere. And the other part I wanted to emphasize is the other energy networks. This has been an evolution over the last 6 years, that the grids are needed for integration of more and more renewables. That's been clear. Storage has made nice progress and has come to the forefront of attention. We've gotten a joint research agenda from storage and grids. And the big important part of this new ETIP, smart networks for energy transition. It's not even called smart grids, but it's called smart networks for energy transition, is that it opens the central part of the energy transition, the networks, up to the other parts of the energy system, from a system viewpoint, from an integration viewpoint. What about the interface with the gas supply? What about, during a scarcity situation, the combined effect of the electricity capacity, including of gas-fired power plants, and the gas supply, which in that very same scarcity situation may be very much needed to keep people warm? What about combined heat and power production schedules? There's many, many aspects here, and I'm very, very glad that on the research side, within the set plan, we got this one ETIP, which can look at this whole system effect, but not at each little detail of each part of the system, no, but from the integration viewpoint. That's very important. It's very clear, but I think we'll hear more about that in the next panel, that distribution is a very important market facilitator, a more and more important guarantor of quality of supply, and there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done there, perhaps even more than in transmission. The data hubs or other kinds of coordinated data architectures are very important here for the prosumers data, flexible connection, control, system services, electric vehicles. These are all parts of the research agenda for system integration that we're looking forward to. And finally, storage has different uses in TSOs, in DSOs, and of course, for the prosumer himself, who may very well be the one who invests in storage, whether it's stationary in his basement or whether it's in his electric vehicle that hopefully more and more will soon be driving. The customer at the end is at the heart of this. Many of the customers, the household customers, probably don't care much yet. But as this energy transition is becoming more and more important, as it has positive effects of cleaner energy, cleaner sky, so much cleaner here than in China, for example, but also negative effects, like a higher bill if we're not careful. I believe the customer will care, not each and everybody, but many of them. And they all should have the choice to care. They all should have the choice, if they wanted, to be exposed to dynamic pricing. My last slide shows off, this may be actually the first time we do this publicly, the wonderful new logo that we invented for this ETIP. It's in the top left corner, Smart Networks for Energy Transition. It has, like all of these things, a pretty fancy governance. There's over 30 people from many, many different kinds of institutions, groups of companies, manufacturers, distribution system operators, TSOs, and so on. It's a real privilege to be able to chair that. It's real fun, if I'm honest, to chair these meetings, because the interests are obviously very different between a manufacturer of a gas turbine, which is trying to become more and more flexible to help the system be flexible, and the supplier of demand response through software and aggregation for the customer. But they both know that only together, only as two parts of the overall one system, will make this work in Europe, and will make it work in a way that emphasizes not our weaknesses and our troubles, but our strengths, which is we're damn good at systems. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Konstantin. I think you described in a very inspiring way what we can express with just two words: digital energy. And I really would like to congratulate to this establishment of of new ETIP on the network for transition, smart network for energy transition. I take your presentation as a kind of research and innovation agenda even for that, which is extremely exciting. What I take home is indeed the enormous potential in providing more flexibility to the system, and so really valorize the advantages Europe has by its multifaceted and diverse potential in renewable energy. Now let's see how the researchers, the scientists see this revolution and how they can contribute and wish to contribute to this scenario. And I would like to ask Professor Eicke Weber, the president of EUREC and director of the Fraunhofer Institute ISE, to explain us the viewpoint of the researchers.
Thank you so very much, and I would like to emphasize it's a real pleasure to be today with you. I don't know if this is working. It's too high. Oh, let me see. Here it is. Okay, sorry. Okay, maybe now I'm closer. The big task ahead for the world, for us in Europe, is a transformation of the energy system to an efficient, more efficient energy system based more and more on renewable energies. And this sounds, when you hear it, as a task which is expensive, which is costly, which might give us an economic disadvantage, but the reality is more and more we can see the economic benefits from being at the forefront of this development. Because what we are talking about here, the development of more efficient renewable energy, the development of the grid structure, the development of storage, all of these are things which are not only interesting for what we do here in Europe, they are interesting for the whole world. And therefore, it is indeed of great economic importance to stay ahead in this. I just would like to use the example of photovoltaics, which was mentioned before. Today, the world photovoltaic market installs 60 gigawatt of additional power per year. We all expect by 2020, and especially in view of the low cost, we reach the 2 cents per kilowatt hour much, much faster than anybody had expected. We expect a doubling of this market to 100 to 120 gigawatts per year within the next 5 years. So in the next 5 years, the world PV market will double, and the question is, where is Europe in this? And I would like to strongly disagree to say we can leave this to the Chinese because it is a commodity market. Reality is there is still a lot of technology development, new generations like PERC, like heterostructure technologies, the bifacial cells. All of this we have developed in Europe, and we should not leave it to others in Asia to distribute it to the world. Our technology should be leading, but this will only happen if we have a market in Europe. So this is where we are at the moment, at a real cross point. Are we giving up on this, as we have heard before, or are we grabbing the opportunity and saying, we have the technology, and if we have the market in Europe, we can spread it out in the world. And as an example of the benefits which we have as market leader, I would like to quote one number which fits very much to what Konstantin said, but he didn't say it, and this is the number of minutes of the interruption of the electricity system. I don't have the European numbers, I have the numbers for Germany. In Germany, by the quick introduction of fluctuating renewables, today we have 35% of German electricity from renewables. Simultaneously, the index of disruption of the system has been cut in half from 20 minutes to 12 minutes, because any system which has to accommodate such large amounts of fluctuating energy has to be much smarter. It has to react automatically to any interruptions. So the system of countries which go first in renewables, which adjust the system in parallel, will be much more secure, much more resilient. The German number of 12 minutes of interruption compares to the French number of 55 minutes of interruption, because in France, with a high nuclear part, you simply did not need this. So this is just an example of the advantages which we have ahead from going ahead in this transformation path, and I hope Europe will stay at the forefront. And our institution, EUREC, which is the institution of research institutes in renewable energy, would like to contribute to this. So let's now discuss what has been published on Wednesday as the new set plan initiative. What does it mean for us? What does it mean for renewables energy? First of all, in the past we have enjoyed the priority access for renewables, and this is something which is on the way out, because in principle it is part of the subsidy system, and in the future we need less and less subsidies because the commercial value of renewables simply can take its own place. However, as soon as we phase out the priority access, the self-consumption of renewables will become much more important, because self-consumption does not need to go through the grid. Self-consumption means a company, households, and maybe in the future as well communities will produce their own renewable electricity and feed it into their own system. They can use batteries whose costs are coming down quickly, and therefore the self-consumption will be a very important part of the future energy system. Demand response solutions will of course increase the flexibility options, because if you have low-cost electricity available, of course you adjust the timing of your cooling needs and other electricity needs. We will have a driver of change in renewable energy technology by the balancing market rules, because we need, of course, power that is able to balance the fluctuating market. And I think it's very good that Europe will support demo projects. They should get the priority access, and they should really be able to show what is possible with the results of our research. And I think we have to be very careful when we talk about capacity payments, because they might be used to make a secret subsidy for fuel cell plants. And I think coal-fired power plants will not be good capacity measures, because they're inflexible. Gas-fired power plants, of course, this is the way to go. Let's look at a few examples. Advanced biofuels, just now, because of the changing market rules, are down to only 1.5%. The EU expects them to come to 6.8% by 2030, but of course this will not happen if it's not possible to re-establish confidence in the market, because the roller coaster policy of the last years in biofuels has left its marks there. We need infrastructure for e-mobility. E-mobility will be a very, very dangerous technology if we are not quickly increasing the markets in Europe. Because if we don't have the markets, the products will come from Asia and will flood our markets. We need charging points, we need rules and regulations. I always promote that cities declare the interior of the cities to be only accessible for emission-free cars by a certain deadline, 2025 or so. This will really bring up the market for e-mobility. Of course, eco-design, innovation driven by mandates from the EU, very beneficial. And of course, the 30% energy improvement target, which has been now agreed for 2030, is good. But of course, the discussion is still about the CO2 target, and I think 40% is not ambitious enough. We can do more, and especially we can do more if we finally get a reasonable price for carbon emissions, which we don't have right now. We need leadership in renewable energy technology, and at the moment it's called the second priority of Horizon 2020, and I think we all agree that the renewable energy technology will be the heart of the energy transformation process. And although we say energy efficiency First, it is clear that at the moment the energy efficiency subject is of little relevance for R&D. The R&D is much more intense in the renewable energy. Mission innovation, the worldwide effort for more public R&D, which has been declared on a global scale, this should really create a firm baseline. And even if the United States is going to drift on a different path in the next 4 years, the EU has an even more important role to lead. And finally, the suggestion to pilot ARPA-E style projects, this will need a really culture change in the European community, because ARPA-E projects means you start 100 projects, and after the first phase you select out 50 of them and only 50 will continue. And this is different than was the style up to now in the EU, so this we have to be very well aware of. EUREC is an organization which wants to foster the renewable energy in Europe, and therefore we are offering to facilitate a coordination among the renewable energy ETIPs. ETIPs will be the very important partner for the European Commission in terms of representing the industry interest in renewable energies, and of course the ETIPs are like columns, silos, and we want to foster more communication, more emphasis on the joint interests of the ETIPs, and therefore we can really create a partner for the European Commission which really can speak with one voice. And I think we think the Set Plan Steering Committee, which is a pure government institution, should set targets for the joint actions, and we should see what comes out of it. Right now, the only instrument of the set plan in order to foster research are the ERANET, the so-called ERANET co-founded projects. And of course, we need to know where it's going, with what funding, what scope, how many countries are really going to put up the matching funding which are needed for these projects. And of course, up to now, the old technology platforms were pretty much left out of the policy-making process in the European Commission, and I think we should really try to change this to bring their voice directly to the Commission and have a dialogue in both directions, and we are very well prepared to this. ERANET co-founds are fine, but of course we should be careful not to endanger the normal support mechanisms through the framework program, because the framework program of course offers a much broader way to support research. The ERA co-founds which have one project in PV, one project in wind, are limited. They are valuable, they are good to make international collaboration possible, but of course they should not be at the expense of the framework program. And of course we should deal with the incredible oversubscription of research topics. You know, if we have less than 10-to-1 probability to get research projects funded, I think this is not very good. And of course, another suggestion is to really create a loop between the proposals of research projects in renewable energies and the evaluators, to give the chance for a feedback mechanism to really make sure the evaluations are as close as possible to the technology relevance. And finally, I would like to say on one slide a few words to a topic which we from EUREC proposed and which has taken now a much larger role. Commissioner Moedas has grabbed the idea of forming a European Innovation Council. However, there is a big danger that this European Innovation Council will be only formed as a one-stop shop for all innovation support in Europe. The original idea was to use the idea of the European Research Council, which, as you all would agree, I hope, that the European Research Council is a fantastic tool to support fundamental research in Europe, because it is independent of any consideration of regional considerations, of technology considerations. You can submit any proposal of high quality research, and if it gets funded by the ERC, usually the proposer has a good time to get offers from universities for faculty positions. It's a fantastic tool. However, it is geared at fundamental research. And therefore, the idea is that the European Innovation Council can add to this an instrument which would fund application-oriented research, where the criterion is not only scientific excellence, it always has to be an excellent idea, but the main criterion should be, is it likely that this innovation makes it to the market? And this should be the ones which are supported in an EIC grant, and of course projects which would be supported in this way will then, when they have been awarded and when they had 2 years time to really bring the idea to the proof of principle to be ready for the market, then innovators should stand in line and investors should stand in line investing in these ideas. So this tool of having an ERC type EIC for application-oriented research will help to de-risk investments, because one of the big disadvantages of Europe in terms of starting companies, bringing venture capital into innovative startup companies is the problem of the risk awareness of European investors. On Page Mill Road in California, you have in one road hundreds of venture capital companies eager to invest in promising startups, and they say we invest in 10 startups, and if 1 or 2 of them is successful, we get our money back twofold and we are happy. In Europe, investors say we only invest in those companies where we are pretty sure that it is a success, and therefore many good ideas, many good technologies never make it this way. So the idea is, with an EIC which would encompass this idea, we could help to really sort out which innovations really are very promising making in the market, and in this way this vision for the EIC will improve the transfer of innovation to the market. So summarizing, I think research in renewable energy in Europe is at a very good stage, and of course we need continued support from the European Union, because the market for the products which come out of this research are even increasing. We need to watch very carefully that we have these markets as well as local markets. We cannot have companies which only produce for markets abroad. If we don't have local markets in PV, in other renewable energy technologies, in electromobility, our companies here in Europe will lose out. So we need to combine research with the right market policy, and then we can grasp the great opportunities which are ahead from this global task, transforming our energy system to a renewable energy system. And if you're interested in the opinions of EUREC on this transformation research, we have a brochure. You get it on our website, eurec.be, and you can get all further information which I didn't have the time in this short presentation to share with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eicke. Thank you, Professor Weber. You have been very comprehensive. Maybe one thing which went across your presentation is indeed how can we help to create new markets, how can we broaden the markets for new solutions, new technologies. On the in the second part where you mentioned the concept of the European Innovation Council and what you expect from it, maybe I would use rather the expression problem-driven or challenge-driven rather than application-driven. But with that caveat, of course, I agree with you, and of course, your expectations are the expectations of many of us. Certainly, we are not going here into the subtleties of how the framework program should be managed, but because then we will never go home today. But what is important, what links what we do in Brussels with direct helping research, and how research and innovation is helped by really the market take-up, by the needs. And indeed, you spoke about subsidies. And I was very happy to hear that you see already the evolution of the market for renewables so strong, so much transformational, that you can imagine that without subsidies they can make it. Now I agree with it, and it's really good to hear this, but we should think also about subsidies or hidden subsidies or indirect subsidies for carbon-intensive fossil fuels, which do exist, so the competition should be fair. And then, yes, then it will work. So with this, I would like now to turn to and invite Mrs. Rowena McCappin, the project director of Glen Dimplex, which is the world's largest manufacturer of electrical heating. Rowena works mainly in the area of energy storage and demand-side management, about which we heard already in the previous presentations. But now we will hear the view of the industry. Rowena.
So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely delighted to be here today to be able to speak with you. My name is Rowena McCappin. I work for Glen Dimplex. Glen Dimplex is a privately owned manufacturing organisation, and today we are the world's largest manufacturer of electric heating products. We pride ourselves in investing continuously in research and development, and continuously looking at investing in our brands and bringing new technologies and solutions to the market. Today in particular, I would like to talk to you about some of the technologies that we are bringing to the market, which should help facilitate the use and the demand, bringing renewable energy onto the grid. And in particular, these are technologies that are used in domestic situations for heating and cooling. So smart appliances, demand-side management, and thermal energy storage. Glen Dimplex is also the current coordinator of a Horizon 2020 project called Real Value, and I will talk to you about that later on in my presentation. Glen Dimplex is headquartered in Dublin in Ireland, and Ireland has extremely aggressive renewable energy targets. So by 2020, 16% of all energy consumption in Ireland should come from renewable sources. And the government has set ambitious targets to meet this target, which is 10% renewable transport, 12% renewable heat, and 40% renewable electricity by 2020. Obviously, achieving this level of integrated renewables onto a synchronous system is extremely challenging. And Glen Dimplex is proud to be working with the TSO in Ireland, EUREC, on this initiative. Most of the renewable energy coming onto the grid in Ireland will be from wind, and as we have already discussed, wind being variable and non-synchronous is extremely difficult to integrate onto the system. And also there is the problem of curtailment, and in Ireland there is a large problem with curtailment. Wind is currently curtailed at 50% on the Irish grid, but in the next couple of years we want to push that to 75%. So in Ireland there is a programme called DS3, which is an EUREC, the TSO programme, and DS3 basically seeks to address the challenges of integrating renewable generation onto the power system. And Glen Dimplex, with some of our technologies, are working in DS3 with EUREC, and again I'll touch on that in the future. But I suppose the point that I'm making here from an industry point of view is that industry needs to start working more hand in hand and building strategic alliances, not just with our traditional partners, but also with new partners, and working towards building and integrating and making the best of the new energy revolution. So we've heard already yesterday, 1/3 of all primary energy consumed in our society is used for space heating and water heating in buildings. So if we're going to tackle climate change, energy security, and the deployment of renewables, we need to look at this sector, and we need to look at it very seriously. So Glen Dimplex, it looks at this sector. This is where our core technologies and products are focused on, and this is where most of our investment is happening at the minute. So to facilitate the transformation in the energy system, we have to use more electricity for heating and cooling. And obviously as electricity becomes greener and decarbonises, electrification of heat can happen more and more. So in Glen Dimplex we have asked ourselves, how can we as a manufacturing organisation, how can we make the best of this increased use of renewable energy in buildings? How can we make the right technologies? How can we employ more people? How can we get more throughput through our factory? This is what we ask ourselves every day. We have two scenarios here. The first scenario is you can make the best use of intermittent renewable energy when it's available. And for this, in Glen Dimplex, we have a portfolio of high efficiency heat pump technology. Or you can store that intermittent renewable energy for future use if it's not needed at that time, for when the consumer needs that energy. And for this, in our portfolio, we have smart electric thermal storage systems. And to facilitate this, you need smart grid technology and obviously the right energy market mechanisms. Okay, so actually I did have a slide here in between which hasn't come up, but that's okay. I wanted to talk here, well, I will go on actually. Heat pumps. So basically, a heat pump is the best way to convert electricity to heat because of its COP. So for every 1 kilowatt of electricity you put into a heat pump, you get 3 kilowatts out of heat out of a heat pump. Glen Dimplex has been investing in R&D and manufacturing of high efficiency heat pumps for over 30 years, mainly in Germany, manufacturing in Germany. And one thing that I failed to mention at the start of the presentation, we are an international manufacturing group, but 90% of our people and 90% of our manufacturing and employment is within Europe, and we want to keep it that way. We want to keep our European factories. We have moved manufacturing from China back into Europe in the last few years, and that is something that we want to focus on. We are focused on making manufacturing product in Europe at the right price, trying to get our capex down and keeping up competition with our Asian suppliers, because obviously in terms of heat pumps, the majority of our competition will be from outside Europe and also from Northern Europe. So in terms of heat pumps, as the grid decarbonises, heat pumps are the ideal products to deliver efficient heating solutions. And by 2020, the heating from a heat pump will be more than 80% from renewable sources. Glen Dimplex is now also investing in R&D in a new type of heat pump driven system, which is the Zeroth energy system, which is an ultra low temperature heating and cooling network. Heat networks are going to be a key part of the future for heating and cooling in urban areas. And this Zeroth system can offer big energy efficiency gains from low temperature networks. Zeroth is a low temperature network which is regulated by a central heating and cooling plant, and it can offer greater control of smaller, optimally sized heating and cooling plants which can use excess waste heat and can deliver around one building or share it between buildings. And in fact, Glen Dimplex is currently looking for partnership opportunities for demonstrations of this system throughout Europe and abroad. So if anybody is interested in talking to me about this and this opportunity, please feel free to find me. So the second scenario, what happens if you have intermittent renewable energy coming onto the grid, but you don't have the demand at that time? Well, obviously, you want to store that energy and you want to store it efficiently and at a low cost as possible. So Glen Dimplex, and energy storage has been discussed a lot over the last couple of days, which is absolutely fantastic. Glen Dimplex is a very active member of EASE, which is the European Association of Storage of Energy. And on behalf of EASE, I would like to congratulate the Commission, firstly for the mention and the work that has been done on the Clean Energy Package released this week in the area of energy storage. We are delighted that energy storage has been now given a definition in the new Electricity Market Directive, which is excellent. But we would like to ask policymakers to take it one step further, if possible. We would like to ask that energy storage be treated as a separate asset class. and that it be the fourth element of the energy system. So along with generation, distribution and transmission and consumption, that energy storage be that fourth separate asset, that fourth class. This would mean that the double charging which happens at the minute on energy storage, because energy storage can be classed as generation or consumption or both, and hence is being unfairly treated in some markets, and this establishment of this fourth asset, this fourth classification, would stop this, and it would be fair for energy storage to be able, for manufacturers like us and other manufacturers to be able to build the business model around storage. Today in Europe, there is approximately 100 gigawatt hours of pumped hydro energy storage. But it's a little known fact that actually there is 4 times more than that of thermal space and water heating storage available in Europe today. What is that thermal space and water heating storage? That is basically the existing electric storage heating and electric water heating in boilers that is available and installed in Europe today. And how do we know this? In 2013, DVNGL, formerly KEMA, published a report called The Potential for Smart Electric Thermal Storage, Contributing to a Low Energy System. That report was published in 2013, and we, along with DVNGL, presented that to the European Commission in the European Parliament. And basically this report highlighted the amount of thermal storage that was already available out there in the market. And what some of the highlights of the report was that if those existing electric storage heating systems were retrofitted, as we would say, or upgraded into smart electric thermal storage systems, which could be then aggregated and linked to the grid and used for demand-side management and storage, that could provide very, very low-hanging fruit. That could be done quite cost-effectively, and that could provide the following. It could provide up to 55 gigawatts of controllable capacity by 2050, avoid 7.4 terawatt hours in a year of heating energy, and could avoid 3 million tonnes of CO2 emissions per year. So what is smart electric thermal storage that I have been talking about for the last few minutes, and you're probably thinking, I wonder what this is. This technology within Glen Dimplex, our brand for this is the quantum system. And obviously for us, quantum is a groundbreaking technology. It's the first true smart grid enabled electric heating system. So in other words, this system can be used for demand-side management. So basically, it's a space heating and water heating system, electric, within people's homes. And when there is excess renewable energy coming onto the grid that there's no demand for at that time, that energy can be put into these systems, stored in the form of heat, and then released when the consumer needs that heat or needs that hot water. So in Ireland, we are working with EUREC, as I have said, in their DS3 programme, with this quantum system. And this quantum system is being used to bring more renewable energy onto the grid. And it's also being used for other services, grid services, such as ancillary services, such as fast frequency response. The heating system itself is up to 25% cheaper to run than the traditional electric storage heater system. So there are multiple benefits for the consumer. Just to summarise, here are some of the benefits of this type of system. I think we've touched on these, so I will go on. But one key point is that demand-side management using this type of system, it controls the consumption of the electricity, but not the heat. So we're not asking the consumer to change their lifestyle, to switch on and off due to a signal, or to switch their fridge off, or to really go out of their way to accommodate this type of system. So the consumers basically set the heat and the hot water that they want, and the smart appliances do the rest. So the smart appliances then work out how much energy is required to deliver that heat and hot water, and it optimises the best time to deliver it based on energy prices, and also when there is renewable energy generation available. Glen Dimplex is also about to launch its Internet of Things platform in spring 2017. And this IoT will enable electric heating to become an integral part of the connected home opportunity, and it will then lead to the use of flexible tariffs driven by smart meter deployment. So, on to the final part of my presentation. As I mentioned at the start, Glen Dimplex is the coordinator of a Horizon 2020 project called Real Value. Real Value was funded in 2014 under the LCE 8 call, which is distributed local small-scale storage, and it will run for 3 years up to June 2018. It received a grant of 12 million euros from the Commission, and we have 13 partners in 5 member states with a focus on Northern Europe. And in this trial, over 1,000 properties, mainly domestic dwellings, will be installed with smart electric thermal storage systems for space and water heating in Germany, Latvia and Ireland. We pride ourselves on having a very strong consortium, and we have every level of the energy chain involved. In Ireland, for example, we have the TSO, DSO, we have a retailer, and we will have up to 800 real people, consumers, homeowners. The objectives of Real Value are, it's not a technology trial. We're not trying to prove that this type of technology works. We are trying to prove that by using this type of small-scale energy storage, distributed thermal storage within people's homes, and aggregating a large population of those homes, that type of use of energy storage system has multiple benefits for all levels of the energy chain, stacked services. The TSO can benefit, the DSO can benefit, the retailers benefit, but most importantly, the consumer can benefit from this demand-side management and energy storage. In Real Value, we have a real focus on real people. As I said, there are going to be over 1,000 people involved in this trial. And in Ireland to date, we have approximately 200 people involved in the trial. And those people are people that have never been involved in smart grid trials before, have never had smart technology. And in fact, the first 200 people in Ireland are from the vulnerable social housing and fuel poor demographic. So we have a real focus on the consumer and making this type of system available to everybody so that everybody can get the benefits from it, not just people who can afford to put in smart technology into their homes. In Real Value, we're looking at the business models, we're looking at legislation and policy, and we're reporting back to the Commission with our findings. Real Value has impact across the electricity value chain, and I have already mentioned that. Finally, I'd like to talk about Bridge. Bridge is a collaboration of all the currently funded smart grid and storage projects in Horizon 2020. It's an initiative which was set up by DG Energy and the European Commission, and it unites all those projects together in one structured group. So at the minute we have 4 joint working groups. We have business models. I'm delighted to say I'm the current rapporteur of that group. We have legislation and policy, data management and consumer engagement. We meet every 6 months and we talk about the challenges and the issues that we are facing in the trials, and then we report those back to the Commission. This is an extremely powerful group. Currently, there are 30 projects involved, over 30 countries, 350 individual organisations from all different types of organisations, utilities, research organisations, private companies like ourselves, charities, and the total contribution from the Commission is over 250 million euros. The point, again, that I'm making here is that industry and the manufacturing industry needs to engage more. We need to put ourselves at the forefront instead of waiting and developing products that we think are right for the market in our silos. And Glen Dimplex, through the initiatives that have been set up through European Commission, are really benefiting from these type of institutions and initiatives. In terms of Bridge, for us to get access to to those 350 individual organisations on a normal business as usual day, we wouldn't have that opportunity. But through putting ourselves out there, pushing ourselves to coordinate and actively engaging with the leading groups in this area of renewable energy in Europe, we have already kindled and started new business relationships. We have new business which is coming out of these relationships already. ETIPSnet was mentioned as well. We, Glen Dimplex, will be hopefully putting somebody forward to participate in some of the working groups. And, you know, associations like EES and Euroelectric, again, have helped us to really benefit and be at the forefront of technological innovation in this field. So my closing remark is that industry, we're doing a lot. We need to engage more. We need to think outside of the box. We need to engage with partners and organisations that we traditionally wouldn't have engaged with before. Thank you.
Thank you, Rowena. This has been a very rich presentation. Maybe what I would highlight from it, not only what you underlined very well, the significance of storage and contribution of various storage technologies, and in this case, indeed, the smart electric thermal storage to the flexibility of the system, but very much also what we express like consumer in the center. This has been an excellent example how this can be accomplished, and when we speak about the consumer, we really mean the whole society and not only the rich. So this is something we really take home with ourselves. And let's turn now from the very west of Europe, maybe to the eastern side of Europe, and I invite Mr. Igor Kočiš, CEO of GA Drilling. It's a high-tech company developing and commercializing new technology that permits big savings on existing drilling technologies, but what probably we will hear is also how these technologies can be used in the context of renewable energies, and I think geothermal in particular. So, Mr. Kočiš.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to be here and also to hear the very interesting presentations from my predecessors, that I found many points that are for us crucial to move forward with the things that we are doing. I'm coming from the research part and private research part of the spectra, where we are trying to be the part of the development of the new technologies that can significantly change the things as they are today or as they will be in a horizon of 1-2 years. That is typical investment timing for most of the investors, and that's also challenging to do such things, but I think it's crucial for all of we are here in the renewable energies to move significantly forward. I will start with one of the graphs that probably most of you are familiar with. You can find many of them at the internet. How is the prediction worldwide regarding the energy sources? And here we see some scissors that are still open, and even the renewable are making great progress last years. Mostly, that also was part of the one presentation, we should think and look globally for the problems that are with the CO2, because there is no CO2 impact, there is no local climate change impact, this global thing that you have in OECD countries. We have, of course, much better situation because we have very mature systems, including grid and power sources. But if you look to this graph, you see, and then maybe the regional point, you see the countries like according to China or Africa, but mostly if you look for a country like India. I just returned 2 weeks ago from India when we are also investigating the possibilities to cooperate. You see that these countries are coming, like India, almost from zero in a production, like 300 million people in India, they don't have access to the energy. And these countries are and will be many years poor. They cannot afford expensive technologies by going to things that could be even today cheaper, like they have still plans that they are doing in these years for coal, for utilizing all the fossil fuels, because for them it's a big challenge to close this gap. So I think there's also the chance for Europe, as we have here very well positioned industry research, to bring the solutions. Of course, first of all, we have to finalize it and test it, but also to enable these technologies worldwide. And that's also on the second side is a big opportunity, I think, for the European companies. Here we listen to several words about quite known and now most popular renewable technologies like solar or wind, but I am hearing, as I'm coming from the R&D of the drilling, I will concentrate on the geothermal industry that is sometimes called like sleeping beauty. The problem of geothermal is that it is used for thousands of years by humanity, and this problem is that it is quite hard today with today's technologies to get enough energy from that. If you look to the picture, just some numbers that we have the sphere that we are sitting on, and is 99% of this is more than 1000 centigrades, and like now it's cold outside, and we are burning our fossil fuels. We are trying to do something that will help us, and also if you compare with the other renewable energies, mostly in northern areas and areas when it's very cold, mostly in the winter, the potential of this energy mix is lowered, and mostly talking about the photovoltaic, and that's why we think that the geothermal could be one of the important answers in an energy mix, how to make the energy affordable also in the regions when, for example, current energy mix is not giving, even in a midterm, long term, successful answers. And just if the question is sometimes if the geothermal is renewable, because we are utilizing the heat from the ground, but regarding the scientists, they expect that it will be about 5 to 6 billion years still. So I think it's quite a lot if we consider the time that we are here on Earth. So that's also quite important point. Here is one of the problems that already was mentioned in a previous slide, that today areas in the world that are really suitable for the geothermal energy, when you can get, not talking about the small megawatts, but going to tens and even hundreds of megawatts in one spot, it's only about 3 to 5% of the world area. And you see some hotspots that are even today quite known, like Iceland. In the US it's the geysers, North San Francisco. Also in Italy we have L'Ardalero, that is one of the best spots in continental Europe. But if you look to the other areas, we have a big problem that there is the temperature, but the question is where it is, and it is very deep, and it's a technological challenge. There are two basic challenges for the geothermal. First is how we can easily to get these hundreds of megawatts from the ground, and the second is how we can manage this reservoir of this energy, and how we in long term can get this energy back to us for our utilization. That's the map that shows the quite nice difference what you can expect in 5 kilometers regarding the temperatures and of course then the energy, and what is the difference if you are able to go deeper. Not going to technical things and all the challenges that are connected with that, but you see a completely different map. And in map, it shows that if you see the spots like, I mentioned the Tuscany in Italy, and here is not, it's outside on maybe like Iceland. These are even 5 kilometers quite red places. You can see how does this energy works in that territories where they are able to generate hundreds of megawatts of the baseload energy. So we are talking about energy that you can utilize 24 hours, 7 days per week. If you look for the footprint, the geothermal energy has one of the lowest footprint, and also if you look from the point of view of its ability to be utilized not only for the electricity production but also for direct heat production, or this much efficient way to heat, for example, when talking buildings and also industry, you can see in Europe we are spending about 50% of the energy for the heating. So these are the things that are mostly, now as again mentioned, in the winter, are quite important. The question is how we can make the copy-paste of the Iceland in a continental Europe. And we have good news and bad news. The bad news is that is a problem with the technology. The good news is that if you look to the map, you can create several tens of Icelands throughout Europe, and you can utilize the same advantages as they are utilizing. Here is just some schematic picture. How does it differ between the today's technology possibilities and what could be achieved in a future if we are able to solve in 5-10 years much better way access to these reservoirs? That today you are based and very dependent on the anomalies that are in a crust. These anomalies are usually near volcanoes or the hotspots or some tectonic faults like San András, very known fault in California. And in that places you can find the spots that are quite hot, and you can, by drilling to 4 or 5 kilometers, even maybe less sometimes, you can get quite nice energy. But there is not only about the access, it's also about the risk of the drilling, because in that places, if you miss the point, it could be just some few tens or hundreds meters, you get totally different numbers regarding the energy that you can utilize, and then the project fails. And that's also for investors something that is not very welcome, because they don't like big risk in the big investment. In geothermal, what is very positive side is that operational costs is very low. If everything is built, is working, then these operations is relatively cheap, and also the time of the electricity or energy production is one of the biggest. It's sometimes more than 90% of the time. Only some maintenance should be done. Also, you compare it to coal, to the fossil fuels, and to the other energy sources. And here, if you can imagine just the technologies that can de-risk this situation, that you can drill to the much deeper depths with much better technology that can make significant change, and you can manage the reservoir in much better ways. It's so-called engineering geothermal systems that are needed for the future to extend the potential of the geothermal energy. You see two things. One thing is that you can access the temperatures that are much higher. It means you can use also other technologies that can much efficiently transform this energy to the electricity, for example. Also, the amount of energy is bigger. And the last but not least point, from the investment point of view, you can utilize much more de-risked models of the drilling. As you reach some point that is quite predictable in many regions, also in Slovakia here as we have some above average situation regarding the geothermal, so it's quite suitable area. If you drill to some depth and you need to go another 500 meters kilometer, it is no doubling your cost, but it's only could be some 10% add. So also from this point of view, such kind of technology can change. Here is the curve, very schematic curve of the current drilling situation, and that's something what I want to stand here. What is the potential of the exponential technologies? If you look to the other industries, it was also mentioned by one of my predecessors, that we see many industries from last 20-30 years when changed industry totally. We can look to IT, to automotive, electric cars. There are many examples when we see the solutions that were very hard to do. There was big courage to do something in that, but they succeeded and they were able to move some processes or industries in 1-2 orders of magnitude. And that's something what is a challenge also for the energy. And now I'm moving to the drilling. We are dealing with that. And the problem is that if you look to drilling, that is for geothermal absolute necessary process and the most expensive. we are working also with drilling companies. And drilling companies, they have totally different priorities. They are working mostly for the oil and gas industry. That is not having the same challenges. And we were trying to find, of course, we need existing experience, infrastructure, support as a small technology company when we have currently 90 people intensively working on the new technology. And I'm a big fan of these new disruptive technologies, and we are utilizing also and looking how these new things like automation, artificial intelligence, nanotechnologies could bring something new. And we found out that this drilling industry is one of the most conservative industries ever I met. There are timings that are tens of the years, and if you look for the development, it's totally different case. So here, as just I will jump some technological part, and here I want to finalize my point with already mentioned mission innovation. And from this last year came also one point that this Breakthrough Energy Coalition that was created by the recognized entrepreneurs and investors, they said that it is not efficient today how the tools, not only also governmental, also private, are used for the disruptive technologies that could change the world. So they are trying to find the ways and challenging also the governments how we can join the forces of the private and public investment to recognize this potential with the risk that is associated, of course, with that, but bring the solution that will not change it only on 20-30% in horizon of 30 years, like we see also on many plans, but could change the 5-10 times the situation. And that could be the great solution. So thank you very much for attention.
Thank you very much. I think high time for many of us to look again at our school books on geology, because the potential you have explained in this deep geothermal technology is fantastic. And I could even imagine, maybe it's too much of an imagination, that also below the sea there is also potential, and you just presented what is available below the mainland, the continents. With this, we came to the end of the presentations on various renewable technologies and indeed the system. And now I would like to open the floor for questions and comments. We have 20 minutes. I already see one request for the floor. You are the second, so please. Yourself here in the first row, yes, and then.
Good morning, Josef Badida, I'm a journalist from Slovakia, Bratislava. Very interesting speaks about demand-side management. I think everybody mentioned in your presentations. But I heard only one practical issue, and that was from Rowena, storing electricity in the way of heat. And in time it is needed, it can be put into the radiator. What else? What other practical, how practically can be used this demand-side management? What else, what are other examples? And one risk what I see is that I understood that this demand-side management needs also dynamic price during the day. So does it mean practically that me as a consumer have to really look for the best price during the day? What I don't think is very practical. When I would like to switch on my light, there could be really high price for electricity. I will pay very much price for this electricity because I would like to have a light during the day at the time when the price, dynamic price is too high. So is it balanced, this demand side management with this dynamic price risk? And also another point is, what do you see in the future the position of distribution companies? Because with self-consumption, it means there will be less electricity supplied to consumers, less electricity in the distribution. So for sure, distribution payment will move from variable part to capacity payment. So maybe this is another risk for renewables. I don't know, but what the future with regard to distribution companies this way.
Thank you very much. Could you introduce yourself?
Josef Badida, and a journalist from Bratislava.
Yes, and you You were addressing your question.
I don't know who is the best for demand side management and distribution companies.
Okay. Please also, those who will put questions, introduce themselves, and if it's targeted to a particular member of the panel, then tell it. Of course, there are questions where a number of colleagues could answer, so please.
Okay, thank you for giving the floor. I'm Ruggero Bertani from ETIP of Deep Geothermal. So that was a question just addressed to the entire panelists. The question is short, but it's necessary a short introduction. So think about the case of Iceland. Iceland is one of the best countries in the world for renewable energy. There is a good technology. There is a very positive social acceptance of this technology from the population. The capital city, Reykjavik, is a small town, is medium-sized town, less than 200,000 inhabitants. So do you know how long it takes a complete switch over from the fossil fuel to the geothermal district heating for that town? It was the best situation in the world, 100 years. 100 years. So the question is, do we have in Europe 100 years for waiting for this energy revolution? I don't think so. The question to the panelists is how we can speed up and reach the solution that or the target that we have shown in less than 100 years.
Okay. Thank you. Let's take these two questions now. Diego, do you want to start maybe?
Yeah. Hello. Yeah, so I will just put Konstantin in a bad situation now answering the first question, and then I will just answer the second, or try to answer the second. On the first one, on the DSOs, we all understand that the more people are going off-grid, the more the DSO cost will be distributed in fewer payers, so that we'll incentivize people to go off-grid more, then the burden for the ones remaining will be higher, so that's a very gloomy scenario. So to be provocative, and also for Konstantin to be squeezed in a corner, how many of you are flying Ryanair or EasyJet? Everybody. So we said that, hey, the quality of supply in Europe is super duper good. I mean, if we go to America, I mean, they're just in the middle age in terms of quality supply. So will we be willing as Europeans to have a lesser quality of supply? To pay less for a good service on DSOs and TSOs? Do we value today what is the quality that we're getting? Because otherwise the equation is very scary for the DSOs. So that's for Konstantin to be squeezed. And on the second one, for those 100 years, our firm belief, and that's why we put the 6 dimensions, is that the big revolution now can only come from us. So the dimension of that is called societal appropriation. When the whole thing was centralized, planned, it was very easy. It was a handshake between 20 people, 30 people across Europe. Now the revolution, the snowball, can only come from the downstream side, from the retail side. And even though we are converted people, we're not practitioners. We're not walking the talk. If you look at the winter package, and now the figure in the commission, you see that the public buildings are formally excluded from the new EPBD regulation. We're not showing to the rest that we are really walking the talk in absorbing on the retail side, downstream side, all the goodies that we're preaching. So, for me, the snowball, it's not 100 years, 10 years, it's on us, the citizens, to bang on the table and to really appropriate, not to be observers and demanders, but to be walking the talk, each one of us.
Konstantin.
Sorry.
I love this discussion because it enables me to come back to the market being very important. You emphasized that also from the manufacturing side. Let's not forget that the market works always, 4 ways, I would say. The market works to give incentives to the customers to care or not to care about their hourly consumption. If somebody really doesn't want to care, about how much electricity he or she uses when the price of electricity is at 20,000 euros per megawatt hour. Well, fine, buy an insurance products. There's lots of them. We were in Spain together a week ago. Many customers expose themselves to the price fluctuations, and many of them choose not to, and that's fine. It works also as a price signal for the investment. If there is enough dynamism in the price changes, that will change the incentives for smart energy storage, for heat pumps, for flexible thermal generation, for renewables, for many things. And I was using the example of a region that already has a lot of photovoltaics. Some more cannibalizes the rest, depresses the value further, go into a different region. It might be a totally different investment incentive on the generation side. The third is for the networks. If you have truly dynamic pricing, and you have all kinds of customers who have their own PV on their rooftop and who have their own battery in the car or in the garage. Well, how much new investment in the distribution grid should there be? That's a really tricky question. But if the price is truly dynamic, including on the value of the grid, localized for that circuit and for that quarter hour, then if truly nobody needs the electricity ever during the entire year there, well, you know, not much incentive to build more distribution grid, lay another cable there for whatever eventuality. But if all the electric car batteries are exhausted because the sun hasn't been shining for a while, all the batteries are empty, and the only way that people can get electricity for anything at all, and damn it, electricity is worth a lot, well, they're going to love the grid. How much are they going to be willing to pay for it during that 1 hour to get the most elementary usage into their individual house? So this, I know this is theoretical. I know we're 10 years away from it, but this is the vision that ENTSO-E would like to pursue. And we want to set up all the systems so we can get closer to this vision, so that the real dynamic pricing gets us into real market signals on consumption, on generation, on the grids, and of course also on storage. I found the 100 years question super interesting. My personal view on that is rather different, actually. I think about this as tipping points. Why do I not have a smart home? Not enough value. In Belgium, the rollout of smart meters isn't exactly aggressive. In Germany, it's not either. You know, many situations aren't there. Once those things are in place, once the economic tips, it could well be that everybody will suddenly be responsive. Why would I buy an electric car? Actually, I do drive a plug-in hybrid. It's a bit of a pain. It's expensive like hell. And I can understand why nobody does it. Once they become cheaper beyond a certain point, give it 5 years, people are going to look at the guys that still drive an internal combustion engine and say, you guys are making noise, you guys are pulling out all the stupid noxious fumes. Which century are you from? Let's not forget that there are tipping points. Once the economics is clearly on the other side, everybody's going to get it. Mm-hmm. Before the economics is clearly on the other side, the only guys who get it, like me, look like, you're stupid. Why do you incur intrusions to your private ease of life and your economics when it's clearly not worth it? So let's not forget there are these tipping points. And that's why I don't think it's going to be 100 years. Once the tipping point is there, and we have a complex system here where a whole bunch of tipping points can occur, on heat pumps, on storage, on batteries, on deep geothermal, lots of tipping points that can all together suddenly make something totally obvious. And then within 5 or 10 years, not 100, everybody will switch. And we'll look back at the guys that don't switch, say, which century are you from? The system viewpoint is super important. It goes beyond the electricity system. It includes heat, of course. It therefore includes gas, the flexible gas generation and all. And that's why I'm so happy about this overall system networks for the energy transition approach. We got them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I turn again to the floor, please, in the first row again, and then you.
I have already microphone, so I would start. Excuse me. So my name is Veronika Galakova, and I'm from Slovak Association of Photovoltaic Industry. First of all, thank you very much for this very interesting panel, especially in this country which is hosting this event, because as we heard yesterday, the priority of Slovakia is mostly on nuclear energy. So thank you very much for all your interesting and inspirational speeches, and I think this word will be spread enough that our energy strategy will hopefully change. And one question to Mr. Pavía. I saw your numbers and it was very interesting, so just to be sure, I would like to know if the numbers which you show us, the price for electricity from the wind and solar, if the building of power plants was without any subsidies or donations, or there was some investment, so it was zero. And how long is the return, the return of the investment? Thank you.
Thank you. I collect a number of questions because we have to finish in a few minutes. So here, and then it doesn't work. Sorry about this.
Yes, Philip Tulkens from the European Commission, DG RTD. My question is to Mr. Staschus. Yesterday, I don't know if you heard the Czech minister from Industry and Trade coming quite bold and quite critical on the impact of the excess of renewable energy on the German network and the impact on Poland, the Czech Republic and others areas where we currently are. Would you have a reaction to that bold speech?
Thank you. The microphone should go there.
Okay, thank you. Timo Ritonomi from Finland, from Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy Department. I'm also a Finnish member in the Set Plan Steering Group. Thank you for very interesting presentations, but I think most of them were dealing with electricity from ENTSO-E. It's very understandable, but like from Rowena's slides we saw half or 50% is heating or cooling or warming the hot tap water. So some of that is done with electricity, some is done very much with district heating and natural gas, so that should be also tackled. For instance, in geothermal, your project is aiming for electricity. In Finland, the deep bedrock is so thick that we have a project now, they are drilling to 7 kilometers, they're now at 4.5 kilometers, but the water will be so cool that's only for district heating, no electricity. So heating must be brought on here. And also one remark is that 2/3 of European renewable is from bioenergy, biomass and renewable part of waste. And it seems that you were talking very much on other issues. And if I cannot address the question to address this question to you, András, I will put it next to you, Diego, that how the discussion could be balanced, not so much on the interesting or urgent questions in electricity market or this demand response, but also have the cooling and heating also in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's try to answer. I will first ask those who haven't answered yet, if maybe Rowena you wish to, but be short please, we're now running out of time.
No problem. Just in response to the series of first questions, so some of the
the early experiences and learnings that we are getting from the projects that we're working in is that in terms of demand side management and appliances within the home and empowering the consumer, from the information we're getting, is interested as long as it's simple. They don't necessarily have to change their lifestyle. They don't have to go looking for complex information. So there is an interest from the consumer to get involved as long as it's simple for them, as long as the services that are being offered is simple. And I think the key message is in terms of electricity. Electricity is a commodity. People take it as it is. So the experience that we're getting from the projects is that companies need to come up with new innovative business models and offerings to consumers to make it interesting for them in terms of packages, services, decreasing costs. So that's an answer to the first question in terms of the consumer, because there's a lot of talk about empowering the consumer, but it needs to be kept simple. And in terms of the second question, I picked up some parts of your question, but I think your general point was that heating and cooling needs to be tackled more aggressively, and not just electric heating and cooling or electricity. Is that what your main point was? And yes, I mean, I completely agree with that point. From in terms of my knowledge, we are only really involved in electric heating and cooling, so I can't really talk about gas or district heating. Maybe some of our other colleagues can talk about that.
Thank you, and we can clarify in the coffee break the rest of it.
Thank you.
But maybe about the excess energy and what to do.
I want to very briefly mention one word I forgot in my last contribution, and that's the product cycles. When you're thinking about tipping points, of course, how much time does it take to change the entire stock or a large part of the stock of things? With electric vehicles, that doesn't seem so bad. It's 10 years or so. With the heating systems in the houses, it's a different story, because your oil boiler or your gas boiler may last 20 or 25 years. And then the transition will obviously be a longer one, and even if I talk about the tipping point, it might take a while to get itself into the entire system. When we're talking about the wholesale electricity market and the synchronous system that has loop flows from surplus German renewables, especially wind in the north, through Poland, the Czech Republic especially, and back into southern Germany, given the current market arrangement. In a way, we're also talking about the product cycle. We're talking about the product cycle of market design. We're talking about the product cycle of information technology, of the pure software that's needed to make the market work and that's needed to keep the system operating. We got a very strong governance system with the network codes. This has a product cycle that sort of leads us into 4 or 5 year things. It takes us a couple of years to agree on things in enough detail, and then takes us a couple of years or so to get the software implemented and tested, if we're lucky. We're in the middle of this. The discussion about the precise methods has been raging for years, but we're making some pretty good progress on it. And on intraday trading, as well as on flow-based market coupling, we're in the software implementation phase essentially now, which has lots of difficulties on both, but will make progress soon. So let's not be too pessimistic, and let's keep in mind that this electricity system is huge. That makes it complex, makes it hard to change, but it also has the great advantage that the different parts of it support each other, and that overall there's quite a bit of reserve in it. So why are people in Poland slightly more relaxed? I hope I don't contradict Konrad if he's in the room here today than there were a couple of years ago. Well, there's a phase-shifting transformer installed now on the German-Polish border. There's a 220 kV line, which was a bottleneck often, that is not in operation anymore because the breakers were open. And once another PST comes in, that line will be closed again. We have all kinds of detailed switches we can turn on and off, and this management cooperatively between the TSOs in the region has actually relaxed the stuff a little bit. I hope it will stay relaxed in the future. It's a system, it's hard to manage, but it's also quite resilient.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid the moment has come when we have to finish this extremely interesting, exciting discussion. I'm sure you will continue now in the coffee break. we bring home many new things, many new thoughts. Maybe something what I'm bringing home is the need for a balanced, but at the same time disruptive advance, not only in technology, but in services, in social aspects, social innovation. And if one leg is missing, we will not make it. So thank you very much. Thank you for the interesting questions. Thanks for the panel.